Picture this cinematic scene. It's 1947 in a modest home in Omaha, Nebraska. A young man, barely 17 years old, Warren Buffett, sits absorbed in the pages of a book that will forever alter his destiny. His eyes gleam with the intensity of someone who has just discovered hidden treasure. The book is titled The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. But echoing in his mind are the profound insights from another monumental work he had devoured months earlier. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. As Warren reads beneath the soft glow of his desk lamp, let's transport ourselves back in time to 1937, when Napoleon Hill, in his study filled with tobacco smoke and mountains of manuscripts, puts the finishing touches on his masterpiece. Hill could never imagine that his words, distilled from decades of studying America's wealthiest men, would find their ultimate expression in a young man not yet born when he began his research. This impossible encounter between two minds, separated by time and space, reveals an eternal secret that few understand. Universal principles of success know no temporal boundaries. Hill discovered the laws, Buffett applied them with surgical precision that would make him the richest man on the planet. What if I told you that in the next few minutes, you're going to discover exactly how Warren Buffett, without consciously knowing it, became the living embodiment of every principle that Napoleon Hill had documented decades before? What if I revealed that Buffett's fortune of over $100 billion wasn't luck, but the inevitable result of applying with iron discipline the same mental laws that Hill had extracted from Carnegie, Edison, Ford, and the magnates of his era? Before we continue, let me ask you something crucial. If this content is going to transform your relationship with money and success, as I hope it will, subscribe to our channel right now and hit that notification bell. Why? Because what you're about to hear aren't empty theories, but time-tested secrets that have created more millionaires than any other knowledge in human history. Historical context. The eternal quest for success laws. To understand the magnitude of what we're about to explore, we must go back to the early years of the 20th century. Napoleon Hill wasn't simply a self-help writer. He was a researcher obsessed with a mission that would consume decades of his life, deciphering the secret code of financial success. In 1908, a young Hill, barely 25 years old, receives the opportunity of a lifetime. Andrew Carnegie, the richest man in the world at that time, proposes an apparently impossible mission. Study for 20 years the most successful men in America to discover if there exists a universal formula for success. Carnegie offers no money, only letters of introduction. Hill accepts without hesitation. For the next 2 decades, Hill interviews more than 500 millionaires, including Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, John D. Rockefeller, Alexander Graham Bell, and dozens of other industry titans. His objective was simple yet revolutionary: find the common denominators, the universal principles that separated the successful from the failed. While Hill completed his monumental research, 1,500 miles away in Omaha, Nebraska, Warren Edward Buffett is born on August 30th, 1930. From his earliest years, Warren shows an unusual obsession with numbers, business, and especially with money. At 6 years old, he sells gum and Coca-Cola door to door. At 13, he works in his grandfather's grocery store and files his first tax return, deducting $35 for the use of his bicycle and watch as business expenses. What makes this story extraordinary is that Warren Buffett never formally studied Napoleon Hill's works as a complete system. However, every crucial decision of his life, every investment strategy, every principle that guided him to the top, reflects with astonishing precision the laws that Hill had documented decades before. It's as if the universe had conducted a perfect experiment. What would happen if someone applied unconsciously, but with absolute discipline, all the success principles that Hill had discovered? The answer walks the streets of Omaha with the name Warren Buffett, proving that success laws aren't theories but natural forces as predictable as gravity. Principle 1. Burning desire and definite purpose. Napoleon Hill was categorical in his first principle. All achievements, all earned riches, have their beginning in an idea. The starting point of all accumulation of riches is desire. A desire is not a vague wish, but a burning desire, an obsession so powerful that it becomes the dominating thought of the mind. How does this look in real life? I'm going to transport you to a scene that changed the course of financial history. It's 1956. Warren Buffett is 26 years old and works at his mentor Benjamin Graham's investment firm in New York. One day, while observing the skyscrapers from his office window, Warren makes a decision that astonishes everyone around him. He quits his stable, well-paying job to return to Omaha and form his own investment partnership. His Wall Street colleagues think he's gone mad. Who leaves New York, the center of the financial universe, to return to Nebraska? But in Warren's mind burned something more powerful than conventional logic, a specific desire, quantifiable, and with a deadline. Warren didn't vaguely dream of being rich someday. His desire was laser precise. I will be a millionaire before I turn 30. It wasn't a hope. It was a declaration of war against mediocrity. Hill had written that a burning desire must be so specific that you can see it, feel it, and measure it. Warren could see exactly the moment when his net worth would cross the $1 million mark. When Warren returns to Omaha in 1956, he has exactly $174,000 saved. Mathematically, to reach his goal in 4 years, he would need to generate returns that most would consider impossible. But here lies the power of burning desire. It doesn't ask how. It simply finds the way. Warren started Buffett Partnership Limited with 7 limited partners who invested $105,000, while he contributed $100. His office was his bedroom at home. His desk was a folding table. But in his mind, he had already built an empire. Hill had observed in his studies that successful people possess the strange ability to act as if their goals were already reality. Warren embodied this perfectly. He spoke, thought, and operated not as someone who hoped to be a millionaire, but as someone who knew with mathematical certainty that he would be. The result speaks for itself. On December 31, 1962, at 32 years old, Warren Buffett had surpassed his goal and accumulated more than $1 million. But most importantly wasn't the money, but what he had proven, that a burning desire combined with disciplined action can alter reality. What differentiates a burning desire from a simple wish? Hill identified several characteristics that Warren exemplifies perfectly. First, specificity. Warren didn't want lots of money. He wanted exactly $1 million. Second, the definite deadline. Before 30 years old, not someday. Third, the action plan. Form his own investment partnership. Fourth, constant visualization. Warren could see his account statement showing 7 figures. But here comes the part that most people overlook. Warren was willing to pay the full price in advance. When others his age were spending on luxuries, he reinvested every penny. When others worked 9 to 5, he studied financial statements until late at night. Burning desire isn't just wanting something intensely, it's being willing to transform into the type of person who deserves to have it. What would happen if you applied this same principle in your life today? What would occur if you set aside vague wishes like, I want to be successful, and replaced them with goals so specific and urgent that they force you to act differently starting tomorrow? Principle 2. Specialized knowledge and continuous education. Knowledge is power only when it is organized and directed toward a definite end, wrote Napoleon Hill. But he was even more specific. Specialized knowledge is more powerful than general knowledge. Men who excel in any field are those who have specialized in that field. If there exists a perfect demonstration of this principle, it's Warren Buffett's obsession with specialized learning. But not just any type of learning, rather the type that Hill had identified as most valuable. Knowledge that can immediately be converted into money. Let's transport ourselves to 1949. Warren is 19 years old and has just read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. This book isn't simply information for him, it's pure revelation. Warren reads every page as if it contained the secret formula for gold. But here's the crucial difference between Warren and millions of other readers. He doesn't settle for reading, he must master. Warren does something that Hill had observed in all great wealth accumulators. He seeks the source of knowledge. If Graham has written the most important book on investing, then he must study directly under Graham. But there's a problem. Graham teaches at Columbia University in New York, and Warren is in Nebraska. What does Warren do? He immediately transfers to Columbia to study under Graham. This isn't coincidence, it's the exact application of Hill's principle. Seek specialized knowledge from those who already possess it and have proven its value. But Warren's obsession with specialized knowledge goes much further. Hill had noted that millionaires are voracious readers, but they don't read for entertainment. They read to gain competitive advantages. Warren turns this into an art. Imagine this scene. It's 1965, Warren is 35 years old and is in the process of acquiring Berkshire Hathaway. While other entrepreneurs rely on instinct or superficial advice, Warren is in his office, reading every annual report from the last 10 years of the company. But he doesn't stop there. He reads the annual reports of all competitors. He studies textile industry trends. He analyzes changes in consumption patterns. When Warren finally makes the decision to buy, he isn't gambling, he's calculating. Hill had written that specialized knowledge eliminates guesswork from business. Warren demonstrates this with every investment. But here's the secret that few understand. Warren doesn't just accumulate knowledge, he organizes it systematically. Hill had observed that successful men develop systems to process and apply information. Warren creates what he calls his circle of competence, a concept that Hill would have applauded. Warren tells himself, "I'm going to become the world's greatest expert in some specific industries. I won't try to know a little about everything, but know everything about a few things." This is the pure application of Hill's specialized knowledge principle. The result is astonishing. When Warren identifies a company in his circle of competence, he can analyze it better than the company's own executives. He can predict its cash flows with almost mathematical precision. He can identify competitive advantages that others overlook. But Warren takes Hill's principle even further. Hill had written about the importance of continuous education, and Warren turns this into obsession. It's estimated that Warren reads between 600 and 1,000 pages daily. Not newspapers or novels, but annual reports, financial statements, industry analyses. When asked about his daily routine, Warren responds, "My job is basically to read all day and think." This isn't laziness, it's the systematic application of Hill's principle. Specialized knowledge, constantly updated and applied, becomes the most secure source of wealth. What's the result of this obsession with specialized knowledge? Warren can make investment decisions of billions of dollars in minutes because his mind is a living database of everything that matters in the business world. Hill had promised that specialized knowledge would be rewarded by the market. Warren demonstrates that this isn't a promise, it's a natural law. His fortune doesn't come from luck or connections, but from the value he adds to the world through his superior knowledge. What would happen if you adopted Warren's same obsession with specialized knowledge in your field? What would occur if you converted learning from occasional hobby to systematic competitive advantage? Principle 3. The Mastermind and Mentors. Napoleon Hill discovered something revolutionary in his studies. No person can accumulate a great fortune without the cooperation of others. The mastermind principle consists of the coordination of knowledge and effort in a spirit of harmony between two or more people for the achievement of a definite purpose. Warren Buffett not only understood this principle, he made it the foundation of his empire. But his application was so brilliant that it deserves to be studied as a master case of what Hill called power alliance. The first manifestation of the mastermind principle in Warren's life occurs in 1954, when he becomes the only student that Benjamin Graham accepts as an analyst at Graham Newman Corp. But Warren doesn't settle for simply being an employee. He intuitively understands what Hill had discovered. When two minds unite in harmony, they create an invisible third mind more powerful than either of the two separately. Graham isn't just Warren's boss, he becomes his first mental partner. Warren absorbs not only Graham's techniques, but his philosophy, his mental discipline, his way of seeing the investment world. But here's Warren's genius. He contributes as much as he receives. He brings youthful energy, hunger for success, and a work capacity that astonishes even the meticulous Graham. Hill had observed that the most powerful mastermind alliances occur when each participant contributes something unique and valuable. Graham contributes wisdom and experience, Warren contributes ambition and dedication. The result is a synergy that benefits both immensely, but Warren will take this principle to levels that Hill would have considered perfect. In 1959, Warren meets Charlie Munger at a dinner in Omaha. This encounter will change not only their lives, but the history of American capitalism. Imagine this scene. Two brilliant minds, one 29 years old and the other 35, discover that they think almost identically about investments, business, and philosophy, but instead of competing, they decide to collaborate. Hill had written that the most powerful masterminds form when participants share fundamental values but contribute complementary skills. Warren is the mathematician, Charlie is the philosopher. Warren sees the numbers, Charlie sees the patterns. Warren analyzes companies, Charlie analyzes the people who run them. Together they create something that neither could achieve alone, the ability to evaluate investment opportunities from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The power of their alliance is demonstrated in the transformation of Berkshire Hathaway. When Warren acquires the company in 1965, it's a declining textile manufacturer with $40 million in annual revenue. Under the guidance of his mastermind with Munger, Berkshire becomes a wealth-creating machine that will generate more than $200 billion in shareholder value. But Warren and Charlie don't stop at their bilateral alliance. They apply Hill's principle of continuously expanding their mastermind circle. They recruit extraordinary executives like Ajit Jain for insurance and Greg Abel for energy. Each addition strengthens the group's collective intelligence. Hill had observed that Andrew Carnegie maintained a personal council of more than 50 men, whom he called upon for knowledge and advice. Warren does something similar but more sophisticated. He builds a network of CEOs, investors, and thinkers whom he can consult about any important decision. What's the secret of Warren's success in building these alliances? Hill had identified that successful masterminds require three elements: common purpose, mutual benefit, and genuine harmony. Warren masters all three. Common purpose. Warren is always clear about his objectives and ensures that his partners share the long-term vision. Mutual benefit. Warren structures all his relationships so that each party gains more by participating than by operating alone. Genuine harmony. Warren cultivates relationships based on mutual respect and absolute trust. The result is a network of alliances that Hill would have considered perfect. When Warren needs information about any industry, he can call the world's best experts. When he evaluates an acquisition, he can consult with executives who have built similar companies. When he makes strategic decisions, he has access to decades of combined experience. Hill had promised that masterminds could accelerate success more than any other factor. Warren demonstrates that this isn't exaggeration. His fortune of over $100 billion is the direct product of decades of intelligent collaboration with other brilliant minds. What would happen if you applied this principle systematically? What would occur if, instead of trying to conquer success alone, you deliberately built a network of alliances that multiplied your capacity to create value? Principle 4. Persistence and patience as golden virtues. Persistence is to a man's character what carbon is to steel, wrote Napoleon Hill. Most people are ready to give up their goals at the first sign of opposition or discouragement. A few persist despite all opposition until they reach their goal. When Hill studied the great wealth accumulators, he discovered that all possessed a characteristic that separated them from the rest: the ability to maintain their course when others gave up. Warren Buffett not only exemplifies this principle, he has made it his most powerful competitive advantage. Let me transport you to October 1987. The financial world is in panic. The Dow Jones has just fallen 22% in a single day, the largest percentage drop in history. Investors are selling everything. Experts predict an economic depression. The news shows images of stockbrokers with their heads in their hands, completely defeated. What does Warren Buffett do in this moment of universal terror? He writes an article for the New York Times titled, "Buy American I Am." Not only does he maintain his investments, he increases them. While others flee the market as if it were a burning building, Warren calmly walks toward the flames with a hose full of money. This isn't blind courage, It's the perfect application of what Hill called intelligent persistence. Warren had studied the history of financial markets and knew something that Hill had observed in all great entrepreneurs: the greatest opportunities appear disguised as terrible disasters. But Warren's persistence goes far beyond maintaining calm during crises. Hill had written that true persistence requires the ability to work toward long-term goals without needing immediate gratification. Warren turns this into an art. Imagine this scene. It's 1988. Warren buys Coca-Cola stock for $1.3 billion. Wall Street mocks. Analysts say he's paying too much for a mature company without growth. Financial media questions whether Warren has lost his magic touch. How does Warren respond? With the serenity of someone who understands that Hill was right when he wrote, "The market rewards the persistent, not the popular." Warren not only maintains his Coca-Cola investment, he increases it. During the following years, he buys more shares every time the price drops. The result speaks to the power of persistence. That initial investment of $1.3 billion is now worth more than $25 billion. But most importantly aren't the numbers, but what they demonstrate about the nature of real wealth. Hill had observed that genuine wealth doesn't come from quick moves, but from correct decisions maintained long enough for them to compound. Warren has a phrase that perfectly encapsulates Hill's principle: the stock market transfers money from the impatient to the patient. This isn't just an observation, it's the fundamental law governing wealth creation. But where does this extraordinary capacity to persist when others give up come from? Hill had identified that genuine persistence is born from absolute faith in the correctness of the chosen course. Warren demonstrates this with every decision. When Warren buys a company, he isn't gambling, he's calculating. He has studied the industry, analyzed management, evaluated competitive advantages. His persistence isn't blind, it's informed. He knows that if his analysis is correct, time will inevitably work in his favor. Hill had observed something else about the persistent. They develop immunity to noise and crowd opinions. Warren personifies this perfectly. When media criticizes his decisions, he reads a book. When analysts question his strategy, he studies more financial statements. Popular opinion is irrelevant to someone who has based their decisions on solid facts. Consider his investment in Apple. In 2016, when Warren begins buying Apple stock, critics say he doesn't understand technology, that it's outside his circle of competence. How does Warren respond? By buying more. By 2018, Apple becomes Berkshire Hathaway's largest position. The key is understanding what type of persistence generates wealth. Hill distinguished between blind persistence and intelligent persistence. Warren demonstrates the difference. His persistence is always backed by rigorous analysis and is maintained only while fundamentals remain solid. What's the result of decades of applying this principle? Warren has generated compound returns of 20% annually for more than 50 years. Mathematically, this means that every dollar invested with Warren in 1965 is now worth more than $27,000. This isn't magic. It's the inevitable power of intelligent persistence applied systematically for decades. Hill had promised that persistence separates the successful from the failed. Warren demonstrates that it's not a promise, it's a natural law, as reliable as gravity. What would happen if you applied the same level of intelligent persistence in your financial life? What would occur if you stopped seeking quick results and began building wealth with Warren Buffett's systematic patience? Principle 5. Mind control and emotional mastery. Autosuggestion is the agency of control between the conscious and subconscious mind, wrote Napoleon Hill. It is the medium by which an individual may voluntarily feed his subconscious mind with thoughts of a creative nature, or by neglect, permit thoughts of a destructive nature to find their way into that rich mental garden. If there exists a perfect demonstration of this principle, it's the way Warren Buffett controls his emotions in the most volatile market moments. But his mental mastery goes far beyond simply staying calm. It's the systematic application of what Hill called organized mental discipline. Let's transport ourselves to September 2008. The financial world is collapsing. Lehman Brothers has just declared bankruptcy. AIG is on the brink of the abyss. America's largest banks are asking for government bailouts. The panic is so intense that some experts predict the end of the capitalist system. In this moment of absolute terror, when emotions are controlling the decisions of millions of investors, what does Warren Buffett do? He writes an article for the New York Times with a message that astonishes everyone. Be greedy when others are fearful. But Warren doesn't stop at words. While others are selling in panic, he's buying. He invests $5 billion in Goldman Sachs. He buys General Electric stock. He acquires stakes in companies that others consider toxic. He isn't gambling. He's applying Hill's principle. When you control your mind, you can see opportunities where others see disasters. Where does this extraordinary capacity to maintain mental clarity when the world is in panic come from? Hill had identified that great wealth accumulators develop what he called emotional equilibrium, the ability to think clearly regardless of external circumstances. Warren has cultivated this ability until it became his superpower. He has a mental process that Hill would have considered perfect. Before making any investment decision, Warren asks himself, am I making this decision based on facts and analysis, or am I being influenced by temporary emotions? Imagine this scene. It's March 2020. COVID-19 is shutting down the global economy. Markets are falling faster than during the Great Depression. Investors are selling everything, including shares of the world's best companies. Fear is so intense that it's clouding the judgment of experienced professionals. Warren, at 89 years old, once again demonstrates the power of mental control. While others are paralyzed by uncertainty, he's analyzing opportunities. His mind remains clear because he has trained for decades to separate facts from emotions. Hill had written that the subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between real and imagined experiences, and that we can program it through constant repetition of positive thoughts. Warren applies this brilliantly. Instead of allowing his mind to fill with constant negative news, he feeds his subconscious with data, analysis, and constructive thoughts. Every morning, Warren reads for hours, but he doesn't read alarmist news or market speculation. He reads financial statements, annual reports, industry analyses. He's deliberately programming his subconscious mind with useful information instead of emotional noise. But Warren takes mental control beyond investments. Hill had observed that successful people develop immunity to criticism and negative opinions from others. Warren demonstrates this perfectly. For decades, he has been criticized by investors, analysts, and financial media. How does he respond? With total indifference. When asked about criticism, Warren responded, "If you allow others' opinions to control your mind, you're surrendering control of your destiny." This is the pure application of Hill's principle. The mind you control is the mind that controls you. Hill had identified that the most destructive emotions for wealth accumulation are fear and greed. Warren has developed specific antidotes for both. Against fear, he uses knowledge. When he completely understands an investment, fear vanishes because it's based on ignorance, not facts. Against greed, Warren uses price discipline. He never pays more than a company is worth, regardless of how much he desires it. He has lost hundreds of opportunities by maintaining this discipline, but the opportunities he has seized have generated extraordinary returns because they were purchased at the right price. What's the result of decades of applying systematic mental control? Warren can make billion-dollar decisions with the same tranquility that others choose what to have for breakfast. His mind is trained to see opportunities where others see problems, to find value where others see risk. Hill had promised that mental control was the difference between success and failure. Warren demonstrates that mental control isn't a luxury, but an absolute necessity for anyone aspiring to create genuine wealth. What would happen if you developed the same level of emotional control as Warren? What would occur if, instead of allowing temporary emotions to dictate your financial decisions, you trained your mind to see opportunities in the midst of chaos? Principle 6. Giving more than you receive. It is an eternal law that one must give before he can receive, wrote Napoleon Hill. The man who tries to get without giving invariably deceives himself. This law is as immutable as the law of gravity. Of all the principles that Hill documented, perhaps none is more counterintuitive to the average mind than this one. How can giving more lead to receiving more? Warren Buffett not only understands this paradox, He has made it the philosophical foundation of his fortune. But before exploring how Warren applies this principle, we must understand what giving more than you receive really means in the context of wealth creation. Hill wasn't talking about charity, although that may be part of the equation. He was talking about a fundamental economic law. The value you create for others determines the value you receive in return. Let's transport ourselves to 1965, when Warren acquires control of Berkshire Hathaway. The company is in serious trouble. The textile industry is in decline. Employees are worried about their jobs. Shareholders have lost money for years. Warren could have liquidated the company and taken short-term profits. Instead, Warren makes a decision that perfectly exemplifies Hill's principle. He's going to give more value to all stakeholders than he receives from them. To employees, he offers stability and growth opportunities. To shareholders, he promises above-market returns. To the communities where he operates, he guarantees long-term commitment. What's the result of this philosophy of giving more? Over the next 57 years, Berkshire Hathaway becomes one of the world's most valuable companies, generating more than $700 billion in shareholder value. But most notable aren't the numbers, but how Warren achieves them. Warren understands something that Hill had observed in all great entrepreneurs. Sustainable wealth can only be built by creating genuine value for others. Every investment Warren makes is guided by a fundamental question: is this company creating more value for its customers than it charges them? Consider his investment in See's Candies in 1972. Warren pays $25 million for a company that generates $7 million annually in profits. Critics say he's paying too much, but Warren sees something others overlook. See's Candies has been giving more value to its customers for decades, creating loyalty that allows premium pricing. The result vindicates Warren's perspective. See's Candies has generated more than $2 billion in profits for Berkshire since 1972. But most importantly, Warren learned a crucial lesson that Hill had documented. Companies that give more value than they receive can raise prices without losing customers. This understanding transforms Warren's investment strategy. He begins seeking companies with what he calls economic moats, sustainable competitive advantages. But when you analyze these companies, you discover that all their moats come from the same source. They give more value to their customers than any competitor can match. Coca-Cola, one of Warren's most successful investments, exemplifies this perfectly. For more than a century, Coca-Cola has consistently provided a product that consumers value more than its price. Warren understands that this dynamic creates an almost invincible wealth creation machine. But Warren takes Hill's principle beyond investments. He applies it in his relationships with the CEOs of companies that Berkshire acquires. Instead of micromanaging or imposing his ideas, Warren gives them something more valuable: total trust and unlimited resources to grow their businesses. What's the result of giving more than he receives to these CEOs? They respond with absolute loyalty and extraordinary performance. The CEOs of Berkshire's subsidiaries work with the intensity of owners because Warren treats them better than owners. Hill had observed that Andrew Carnegie applied the same principle with his employees, giving them growth opportunities and profit participation that exceeded what was common in his era. Warren modernizes this philosophy, creating a business culture where giving more becomes the norm, not the exception. But perhaps the most powerful application of this principle is Warren's philanthropy. In 2006, Warren announces that he will donate 99% of his fortune, primarily to the Gates Foundation. This decision astonishes the financial world. Why does the most successful man at making money give away practically everything? The answer reveals a deep understanding of Hill's principle. Warren has discovered that giving strategically multiplies his capacity to create value. His donation isn't an act of pure altruism, it's an investment in solving problems that affect millions of people. By applying the same principles that made him successful in business to philanthropy, Warren can create social value at massive scale. Hill had written that giving must be strategic and measured to be effective. Warren demonstrates this perfectly. His philanthropy is as carefully planned as his investments. He studies problems, evaluates solutions, measures results. He's applying the same intellectual rigor he used to build his fortune to create social impact. But there's an even deeper dimension to Warren's application of this principle. Hill had observed that giving more generates what he called return current, unexpected benefits that flow back to the giver. Warren has experienced this for decades. His reputation for treating sellers well has resulted in the world's best entrepreneurs offering him their companies first when they decide to sell. His commitment to transparency has created trust that allows him access to opportunities other investors never see. His long-term philosophy has attracted the type of investors who remain loyal during crises. What's the final result of systematically applying the principle of giving more for over 50 years? Warren has created not only financial wealth, but social, reputational, and intellectual capital that multiplies every opportunity he encounters. Hill had promised that giving more would be rewarded by the universe. Warren demonstrates that this isn't mysticism, but pure economic mechanics. When you consistently create value for others, they create value back for you. What would happen if you adopted Warren's same philosophy? What would occur if, instead of focusing on what you can get, you concentrated on how much value you can create for others? Powerful conclusion: the eternal legacy of universal principles. We have reached the end of an extraordinary journey, a journey that has revealed an astonishing truth. Warren Buffett isn't simply a successful investor, he's the living demonstration that the universal principles of success documented by Napoleon Hill work with the precision of physical laws. Think about the magnitude of what we've discovered. A man who started with $174,000 in 1956 has accumulated more than $100 billion by following exactly the same principles that Hill extracted from studying America's richest men between 1908 and 1928. This isn't coincidence, it's confirmation. Hill had promised that his principles were universal, that they would work in any era, any industry, any circumstance. Warren Buffett has spent 70 years proving that Hill was right. Every crucial decision of Warren's, every strategy that elevated him to the top, every philosophy that guides his life, reflects with laser precision the principles that Hill had documented decades before. When Warren set the specific goal of being a millionaire before 30, he was applying the principle of burning desire. When he obsessed over reading everything related to investments, he was implementing specialized knowledge. When he formed alliances with Graham and Munger, he was creating masterminds. When he maintained his investments for decades while others sold in panic, he was demonstrating intelligent persistence. When he controlled his emotions during crises, he was mastering his mind. When he donated 99% of his fortune, he was applying the principle of giving more than you receive. What does this mean for you? It means that the secrets of wealth creation aren't secrets at all. They are documented, proven principles available to anyone willing to apply them with the same discipline as Warren Buffett. Hill showed us the map. Buffett traveled the territory. Now it's your turn to apply these principles in your own life. You don't need Warren's genius or Hill's connections. You only need the willingness to systematically apply the laws that have created more millionaires than any other knowledge in human history. Imagine for a moment what would happen if you adopted just one of these principles with the same intensity as Warren. What would occur if you developed a burning desire so specific that it forced you to act differently starting tomorrow? What would happen if you turned learning into your obsession as Warren turned reading into his job? What would occur if you built strategic relationships that multiplied your capacity to create value? Warren Buffett's story teaches us that extraordinary wealth doesn't require extraordinary luck. It requires extraordinary application of ordinary principles. Hill documented these principles, Warren lived them, and now you have access to both. But here's the truth that separates the successful from those who simply know about success. Knowledge without application is entertainment. Hill's principles and Warren's example only have power if you decide to implement them in your real life, with real discipline for real time. The moment to begin isn't tomorrow, isn't next week, isn't when you have more time or more money or fewer problems. The moment to begin is now. Warren started at 14 selling gum. Hill began his research with an idea and 20 years of unpaid work. Your perfect moment is this moment. Before you finish watching this video, I want you to do something specific. Identify which of these 6 principles you're going to apply first. Are you going to define a specific financial goal with a deadline? Are you going to start a specialized education program in your field? Are you going to identify potential mentors or partners? Are you going to develop a long-term persistence plan? Are you going to train your mental control? Are you going to look for ways to give more value? Let me know in the comments which principle you're going to apply first and how you plan to implement it. When you share your commitment publicly, you dramatically increase the probability of following through. Hill had observed this in his studies. Shared goals have more power than secret goals. And if this content has opened your eyes to possibilities you didn't know existed, if you've felt that spark of recognition that says, "This can change my life," then share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Hill had written that one of the fastest ways to solidify your own knowledge is to teach it to others. Subscribe to our channel right now and turn on notifications, because every week we share secrets like these, time-tested principles that have created fortunes for generations. They aren't fashionable theories that work for a few months. They are universal laws that will work as long as humanity exists. Remember this: Warren Buffett wasn't born destined to be the richest man in the world. He was born into a middle-class family in a Midwestern city. His success didn't come from special advantages, but from applying universal principles with exceptional discipline. Hill taught us that success leaves clues. Warren Buffett lived those clues for 70 years. Now it's your turn to follow the same path that has led thousands of ordinary people toward extraordinary wealth. The difference between where you are now and where you want to be isn't luck. It isn't connections. It isn't perfect timing. The difference is systematic application of proven principles. Hill documented them, Warren demonstrated them, and you can live them. Your financial future is waiting. The principles are available. The examples are clear. The only missing element is you making the decision to begin. Hill had ended Think and Grow Rich with a promise: when you are ready for the decision, you will definitely make it. Warren Buffett made that decision at 14 years old and changed not only his life, but the world of investments. Are you ready to make your decision? The moment is now. The principles are here. Your future is waiting. Hill showed us the way. Buffett walked it. Now it's your turn to apply it.